All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for logging into our video here. It's been a while since Emeric and I have made a video. We're going to be planning on doing quite a few in the next few weeks. We got a lot of exciting things coming. We're going to be covering Humanofort, of course, but we also have a lineup of IFBB pros that, because of our protocols and the Humanofort, have become very successful, and they're going to help solidify that. So we got a lot of really exciting things coming, but we found some new things, talking about Humanofort, some of the growth factors in it, and Activin. And so I've logged in today. Those are a couple of the main things we're going to talk about, is how the growth factors act as ligands to receptors. And to dummy it down for people that don't understand what receptors are, every single peptide or hormone growth factor in our body has a receptor. Okay. Now, what a receptor is, you try to picture when you were a little kid. You remember those balls that had a star pattern and a square and a circle and an oval, and you had the blocks and you had to try to put them in there? Well, that's what it's like in your body. The hormone is a certain shape, or the peptide is a certain strain of amino acids in a certain shape, and they fit perfectly into those receptors. And once they are fit into those receptors, they turn on what is meant to be done. So testosterone, for example, binds to the androgen receptor and turns it on. Okay. Now, there's problems with some of these receptors. Just like people get type 2 diabetes, other receptors have problems too. Imagine it being like a dimmer switch. When the receptor isn't working its full capacity, it's like you had a light with a dimmer switch where it's dimmed down. Now, when these receptors act as a ligand to these receptors, it's like turning that dimmer switch all the way up, and the receptor acts at its full potential. So you will get more out of less. That's why you will see people's blood sugars regulate when they start taking Humanofort. It's because their insulin receptors are performing at their full degree. Same thing with the androgens and every other thing in your body. So that's, a discussion on receptors. If you don't understand how receptors work, that's kind of a dummied down version. And then we're going to talk about Activin, which is in Humanofort. And Activin is essential for reproduction and testicles, ovaries, things like that. And there's some other key things that Emeric's going to go over. So from here, I'll let Emeric start talking. And if anything needs a little bit of like dummy down explanation, I'll jump in and clarify it. So,
yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Emeric, go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, probably a lot of people, they know when we talk about ligand, what the hell is that? So I pulled up some explanations, so I'm gonna make some quotation. Ligand, what's a ligand definition? It's a biochemistry. A ligand is any molecule or atom which binds irreversibly to a protein. A ligand can be individual atom or iron. It can also be larger and more complex molecule made from many atoms. A ligand can be natural or anorganic. We talk about organic, it's the fibrous growth factor Humanofort.
Yeah.
Inorganic molecules.
Humanofort's created naturally.
Yeah, a ligand can also be made synthetically in the laboratory. So what we have is not synthetically, it comes
right
when in embryo development.
Humanofort's the only form
embryo
of growth
development
factors that are made naturally.
Okay, so this is because the key properties of a ligand are found in its chemical structure. If that structure can be recreated in the laboratory, the synthetic ligand will be able to interact in the same way as natural ligand. But so far, they have no synthetic ligands. They're still working on, so who knows when. Okay, so now let's go how ligand works. The ligand travels through the watery fluid in an organism, within the blood tissues, or within cells itself. Again, we're talking cells. We're going to get to that later. the ligand travels at a random, but once the concentration is high enough, when, like we talk about the fibrous growth factors, when diminishing in the
Yes,
body, so they don't have high concentration, so they cannot act as a ligand.
yes,
Okay, now, okay, so a ligand will eventually reach a protein. Proteins receiving ligands can be receptors, okay? So protein receptors, channels, and can even be the start of a complex series of intervened proteins. When a ligand binds to the protein, it undergoes a conformation change. We're going to tag a signal. This means that where no chemical bonds have been formed in the broken, the physical action of the ligand fitting into the protein changes the overall shape of the entire structure. And this can trigger many actions. In most cases, the movement of this protein itself activates other chemical pathways, so not just hormones pathways, or triggers the release of other messenger ligands, which is the
right,
Humanofort, to carry the message to the other receptors. So we
exactly.
talk about every single receptors there. You mentioned the just
Yeah.
in advanced
And,
diabetes.
and that's
Okay.
where a lot of people are completely illiterate when they're taking TRT at too high a doses. They don't realize that a lot of the reason, or guys doing anabolic abuse, they stop responding to the doses because these growth factors eventually quit being produced, and that ligand effect, you're not getting the full potential out of the receptor. Humanofort replaces that. And then
Yes.
you get more out of anything, whether it's a peptide or a hormone. And these things cross and go with many different pathways. So
Yeah.
you're getting, once that happens, it turns on everything. And
Yes. Yeah.
that's what Emeric's explaining here.
Yeah. So that's why some retired pro bodybuilders and some still active, when they start follow this protocol, they couldn't believe the results because nobody talks about growth factors, how they very important to be in a good range, because otherwise they're not able to act as a ligand to receptors
Right.
signaling. So hopefully now it's more understandable why so important these fibrous growth factors, which as we age start diminishing.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that
Also,
up.
also when you go through very severe training, which, for example, humans are not created to do squats with 500 pounds. Yeah,
Right.
basically, normally thinking, any squats you're doing is your body weight, because in nature normally
Yeah.
you squatting, you go down, pick up something, so you don't have 500 pounds on your
Yeah.
back.
Or you
So
might
all those,
carry a rock over a little
yeah,
ways
so
or
that
something, but
all
that's
puts a
about it.
tremendous stress in the body
Yes.
and the nervous system. And there's no research, but that can affect also these growth factors because the stress involved. Okay, also,
In order to recover from the stress, our body uses these growth
yeah,
factors.
and also we talk about creating free radicals in the body, and
Yep.
we can go. It's like how different things can happen now by talking about these growth factors, and you go back when you were young, did not affect that much. You could play all day long soccer or football, running, climbing trees.
Yep.
Next day you did again, and there's no problem because these growth factors are the beginning of diminishing. It starts at age 30, same as hormones.
Yes.
Now, in some people more or less. And why this growth factors is very important, because these growth factors,
Anybody in their late 20s would benefit them to start Humanofort as early as possible.
yeah. So the younger people, what helps
And the older we are, the more the benefits are noticeable.
yeah. So basically, this podcast we're doing it for people over 30 because I'm not, you're not able to convince that 20 years
Well,
old guy
yeah,
in
most
tremble.
people in their twenties are ignorant as hell anyway,
Yeah.
and they don't.
And, they, in special dose and tremblers. So we're talking about people, they like over 30, even when they were younger, they was abusing anabolic steroids. Now suddenly they get to age 30, 35, 40, they realize there is no future, there's no money in. So just keep bodybuilding as a longevity,
Right.
So once you damage your system, you need a tool to repair. And
Yeah.
these growth factors are the repair tool, not testosterone,
And
no
um,
ACG or other post-recovery drugs they're using in the market.
yeah,
This some of these growth factors, our body able to produce some of the growth factors, not all of them. For example, if you do fasting more than like I would consider a normal fasting, everybody should have 12
yeah.
hours. That
If
should
you
be everybody,
if you
12
go to
hours.
like 21 hours, the
Yeah, so
fiberblast growth factor
yeah,
21 will start going up. But some people,
yes, that's happened.
as
So
they
after you're
age,
fasting
they get
longer,
less and less of that, so the fasting doesn't work as well for them. Where
yeah, so
Humanofort will replace that.
yeah, so basically, when you do that long fasting, some people do 72 hours, some people a couple of days. Of course, you start losing fat because your liver produce more fibrous growth factor 21, which directly start mobilizing and your body to utilize the fat for energy. However,
Metabolizing fat, yeah.
however, that high levels of fibrous growth factor 21, fasting where you don't supply your body with amino acids, then it became not just fat catabolic, also muscle catabolic.
Yes.
So then you step on the scale after 3 days, I said, oh my God, I lost like 20 pounds. Well, how much is muscle there? How much is fat? Okay, so fasting is very healthy. I'm not saying that, but when you are on a very strict program where you're going to put muscle and you want to not to compete, but you still give a muscle, you need to train. Okay, so for those training seriously, I wouldn't recommend more than 12-hour fasting on the days they work out. For example, you take off Saturday, Sunday, that day you can go ahead and have a lot longer fasting.
Yeah.
Now,
And I tell a
now
lot of my
let's,
guys this, like, eat with your appetite, get plenty of protein, and then once every 2 weeks or once a month, do a 48 or 72-hour fast. You
yeah,
get all the benefits. You don't
yeah,
have to do it every fucking day.
yeah.
You know,
So by incorporating Humanofort, what you can do, you don't need longer fasting to 12 hours. You just go on low carbohydrate and you adjust the calories, but the Humanofort supplies the fibers go to 21 without creating in the liver. So then you lose fat and build muscle.
and then autophagy, the breakdown of dead cells. Fibroblast growth factor has to do with that. Fibroblast growth factor 21 has to do with autophagy. That's why when you're taking Humanofort, whether you're fasting or not, your body goes into autophagy, and it also helps metabolize fat. So if you're literally just eating amino acids and lowering your carbohydrates and running Humanofort, you'll preserve and even build muscle, metabolize fat, break down dead cells, and regenerate them. The growth factors involved in regenerating those dead cells are also in Humanofort. So
Yeah,
there's so much complex stuff to this, and people are
yeah,
extremely ignorant when it comes to
yeah,
everything Humanofort does. And
yeah,
if they really understood what it does, not a person in the world wouldn't take it.
yeah. Now, other subject I want to
Honestly, it should be $200 a bottle.
other subject I want to talk about. We did spoke about this couple podcasts regarding there were different experts on steroids advising bodybuilders. There was discussion about did androgen receptors they get downregulated, saturated, and they had different studies, but none of the studies explained why at one point you don't respond anymore. Your body doesn't respond for, let's say you started with 200 milligram, let's see just a number. So after a while, suddenly you don't feel the 200 milligram as a function. So then you're injecting more testosterone, and of course, more testosterone, more receptors you're creating, and still after increasing dose takes about 8-10 weeks, you don't feel again.
Right.
So they talk about all kind of studies, and they try to figure out, but nobody focused on that it's something called agonist,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then agonist, it's in a medical term, agonist in a simple form, activity. So
Right.
what's happening, it becomes whatever the milligram injecting becomes partial agonist or partial activity. The reason, because this is the way I get my conclusion, reading all the studies, and no studies showed me or proved me that anything has to saturation of androgen, downregulation. That doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't make sense. If you inject more testosterone, we have more receptors, then how the hell you don't feel it? It becomes partial active. So now, let's see, I was talking about 200 milligram. You don't feel it anymore because that 200 milligram injecting, partial activity can be between 1% and 50%. So you and me may inject the same amount, but my partial activity maybe is higher than yours. So I still have a little more feeling, because maybe your partial activities are like 20%, mine is like 50%.
Right.
You know? So that's why they say, man, that guy responding for 200 milligram better than me, even it takes him for the same time. Now,
there's two factors that go on there. One is the rise of SHBG, which is blunting some of the testosterone after 8 weeks. But two is the downregulation of the growth factors that are acting as a ligand to the receptor. So the receptors, the testosterone is only working as a partial agonist.
Exactly.
Growth factors in Humanofort turn the receptors on, so they are, it is now a full agonist, and you get its full degree.
Yeah.
That's why our microdosing of testosterone with the Humanofort, these guys are able to build so much muscle.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of guys out there that can't get their head wrapped around it, because all they can think about is dosage, and all they give a shit about is compounds and things like that. They're honestly idiots.
So when a drug or compound becomes partial agonist, the partial agonist competing with the full agonist. So that's why. So the partial agonist interfere with the full activity, so that the full activity can do what's supposed to do. So also it was a study conducted from Rasmussen, and later on was another Shankara and Naraya. They did a similar testing on people using excessive androgens, testosterone, and people not using anything, and they were trying to see what's happening with the testicular function. So what they realized that after, so they realized that even after the androgen users, they discontinued using any testosterone.
Yeah.
It took them approximately 21 months after less androgen use to start feeling some activity in the testes. However, it is some androgen abusers, it became permanent, because in the testicles we have
shut their
something
hypothalamus down too hard.
Yeah. Now also the testicle function is very important. It's depending on activin. You know, activin. Now I want to emphasize there for men and women listening this. activin is very important, testicle function, sperm, etc. And a woman is very important for menstrual cycle. So Humanofort is not only for men, also for women. So
Emeric, can I ask you something?
further research was done, and they find out that activin decreasing with age. So now explains why suddenly you older, you having dietary cholesterol, which is very important because testes produce the most testosterone. It's correct about 98% testosterone produced in testicles, some produced in the adrenal gland and the brain, but there's very little. So now suddenly, if you have dietary cholesterol, and what's happening? So they find out that activin is down regulating. So that's diminishing too. So now we have the growth factors diminishing and the activin. So suddenly, why you old and why you don't have normal testicle functions, you don't have erections, because that's very important. So people are focusing on HCG and all this stuff, and the studies show that using all these protocols did not restore level of activin.
Right.
So it's only one way you can get activin, it's from Humanofort. So this is another area, hopefully some scientists or some group, they're doing research, they will come up with some money and do a research on this, because maybe not gonna happen in the next 10 years, but maybe in 20 years, someone will do this study and they will come back that they're gonna say my theory and use regarding what's happening in testicles is nothing has to do with diet, etc. Of course, diet is very important, but once this activin it starts diminishing in men and women, you have an issue.
Question for you: this activin is also going to help women in menopausal phase.
Correct, because it's involved in the menopausal cycles.
Yeah, and that's something that I want to stress is I get so sick of hearing, can women take Humanofort? These growth factors are natural to men and women. It has nothing to do with your sex. Your natural hormones are what to do with your sex. Growth factors are the same in everybody. So activin, it's very important in women's menstrual cycles and hormonal, the would be the ovaries.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's very important for testicular function and in the woman ovary function. Now, also very important, if you're able to take synthetic activin, was that wouldn't be enough. Why? Because also you need to restore your hypothalamus function and adrenal cortex function, because when adrenal cortex has dysfunction output, men and women, you have all kind of issues. So number one, restore hypothalamus and adrenal cortex, and also restore normal level activin. So that happens only with one thing: the Humanofort supplies all necessary. So peptides, you can inject all kind of peptides. Peptides will not restore cell communication. Cell communication is very important.
Humanofort outperforms HCG hands down. I've seen it done many times. Emeric's seen it done many times. HCG is I'm not a fan of it at all. But
even I would prefer
the hypothalamus function, the fibroblast growth factors, once you're off the high levels of androgens, the fibroblast growth factors actually rebuild the size of your hypothalamus and turn that back on, and your adrenal cortex goes back to normal. And that's why everybody that follows our protocol, and I've had at least 50 people think I was full of shit. And after 6 weeks, their sensitivity to caffeine doubled. Literally, they had to cut their caffeine in half, and that's because their hypothalamus came back and their adrenal cortex function came back, and now they're stimulated with caffeine it's twice as effective as it used to be.
And also I would recommend instead Clomid ACG. Just I want to mention something. Even tribulus, the real tribulus, the tribistan from made by Sopharma, was a control study between clomid and the tribistan, and the same results without any side effects. So that's why I cannot import anymore tribistan commercially. You can still purchase for personal use
because it
because
outperformed
I was
the
importing it and they
FDA's
were selling
quantum.
at the health food stores. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because on that base, FDA didn't let they said that because it was a study, a control study
So
with a drug, tribistan is a drug.
the perfect like people have reproductive issues, the perfect stack would be Humanofort and the Tribistan for
Well,
men.
the real tribistan, because
The
all
real
on the market,
Tribistan,
they
yes.
have so
There's a
much
lot
drug.
of Tribulus terrestris out there that's garbage. But anyway, we got to cut the meeting off here. We've been going along for a while now, and we don't want to lose people's interest. But Emeric and I,
I just one more very critical about something.
oh yeah.
So this growth factor, even you're born with all these normal growth factors during time life, it can be downregulated, upregulated, and also mutate. So when it's mutating, for example, they did a test on male rat,
Yes.
and they mutated 5 growth factor 9 in a male rat. It mutated, and they start acting as a female rat. So the mutation can happen after you already was born, or this mutation can happen during the development, and that's why people they're born with different defects. So these growth factors need to be kept running smoothly and have a perfect balance. All the growth factor family has to be in normal range to able to create different families to create.
Yeah.
To,
And Humanofort's the only product that contains the full spectrum.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it balances
So,
all these things out.
so on the next podcast, we can get into it, different other product on market. They have some growth factors, talk about why it's different. And also next time we're going to touch a little the peptide. That peptide is a huge industry. And of course, if Humanofort wouldn't exist, I have to admit, I would pay attention to the peptides in some different areas.
Humanofort contains all the peptides pretty much.
Yeah. So
there's very few peptides that aren't in Humanofort. So if you're running Humanofort and you want to take more peptides, just take more Humanofort.
Yeah. So next podcast, we're going to go more in details how this peptide, they are made in your body and how those peptides created and what helps you body to create those peptides.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for this podcast, and hopefully we have more experts listening and go online and start reading on these growth factors, how wonderful.
I'd really appreciate it if people would please subscribe, like, share, and send this information to anybody you think that this would be helpful to. There's doctors out there that don't have a freaking clue about any of this stuff. They need to be educated on this stuff. There's people in the field, there's bodybuilders, there's fitness enthusiasts, there's people that are even into regenerative health, longevity, people that are having problems reproducing. There's like anti-aging, biohacking, you name it. All these people belong in Humanofort.
Yeah. So next podcast, or not next one we get together. I want to have a reserved time only for women regarding this, because if we talk about not just women menopause, also this has PMS. So a lot of guys don't know when a wife has a PMS, you don't want to be around. So we're gonna get that also that subject the next time.
Awesome.
Okay. Well,
nothing like helping with the PMS.
Yeah.
The women will thank us too.
Yeah.
Because what I heard is it's not fun to be the woman in that situation either. So thanks for this, Emeric. We'll cut it off here, and then pretty soon we'll make another podcast. Like I said, we got some IFBB pros coming that are big advocates of Humanofort and our TRT protocol, and for the skeptics out there, We're gonna prove them all wrong, and it's not gonna be long from now, people are all gonna be like, damn it, Emeric and Mike were right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be well known. So just wait till Emeric's documentary comes out. It's coming. So,
Okay. Okay, Mike. It was
all right.
nice.
Talk to you later, buddy.